Hello, everybody. All right, welcome to the Mikestand. Today, of course, is Thursday, February the 26th, 2026. So we're almost out of February here, just a few more days here. Of course, tomorrow will be our final day of February of the show, as, of course, Sunday will be March the 1st. So we'll be getting, of course, so, anyways. Well, hopefully everybody's having a good week thus far and having a good year thus far. As we're 2 months in, of course, we're gonna give people a few minutes to show up before we get started. Hopefully, everybody's having a good day. Today, with my cartoon watching um one of the cartoons that, of course, I was watching. I saw from April of 1946, The Service for the Gal Popeye cartoon that of late, the last few times I've been seeing it on TV, they've been having a disclaimer up about like, basically like racial or um or something like that. But when I watch the cartoon, there's nothing in there that anybody could misconstrue as being, um you know, offensive. So it kind of like, okay, whatever. Um, let's see. Also saw one of UA's earliest entries into the animation world of stop motion animation with she said with the one she said no, which is essentially about a young Mexican named Pepito trying to woo a girl who kept rebuffing him until she finally let him take her on a date, and they ended up getting married, and then he kind of ended up regretting regretting it. So yeah. And now we are coming up on 3 minutes here, looks like. So I guess I'll talk about what's on tap for tonight. Got one article from Bounding in the comments I'm going to go over. Anime related article. Another case where one of the licensing companies here in the States has decided to take some liberties with the Japanese material that's been called out by many fans and certain ideological stances they have um, into, of course, a work that they're being paid to adapt, not to use as their own personal. And in this case, it was kind of more. It's a little bit disappointing because this company, Sentai Filmworks, was actually. I was under the impression up until this point that they had actually tried to stay away from that kind of stuff, but apparently not. So we'll look at that. Also, we'll get caught up on all the latest in wrestling news. Look back to last night's AEW as they're, of course, continuing their preparation for about 2.5 weeks away from Revolution. We'll also take a look ahead to tonight's Impact and Ring of Honor shows. And then finish things off with this day in each history. So with that being said, I think I'm going to go ahead and get started. Of course, a friendly reminder as always, if you guys haven't already, goes for both my Rumble and my YouTube viewers. If you haven't already, you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream. See if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions, and I will try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. With that being said, let's go ahead and get going here. Actually, once I bring this up, I think I am going to need to step away from the computer for a quick moment. I'll be right back. I'll put the music on while I'm gone. Just got to take care of something real quick here. All right, so let's go ahead and get into this then. So, all right, so Sentai Filmworks localizers inserts cancel culture into, in smaller quotes, Oshi no Ko anime localization. Article by Nerdigans Inc., published February 25th, 2026, which of course was yesterday. So let's go ahead and take a look at this and see what's going on here. All right, so despite the threat of AI localizations slowly becoming a reality, Japanese to English localizers continue to overwrite the Japanese creative vision in favor of social media buzzwords. The latest case consists of the Sentai Filmworks localization team forcing cancel culture into the latest season of Oshi no Ko anime. Now, I did preview this article. I did pre-read it beforehand. One of the rare times I usually do. I wanted to make sure I kind of got a good point of what they were getting at in the headline, and it did here. So, but let's just see more. So, based on the popular psychological slice of life manga written by Akasaka, who, of course, in parentheses here, also apparently wrote Kaguya-sama Love is War, and illustrated by Mengo Yokoyari, of Scum's Wish fame. Oshi no Ko explores the darker aspects of the modern Japanese entertainment industry, while trying with the third season covering VTubers, the increasing influence of social media, and the classic casting couch. Now, for those of you who don't know what they mean by the classic casting couch, that was oftentimes when directors and producers would try to take advantage of young actresses by promising them like work and roles and all that. You know, that was what it was meant as the casting couch. But basically they might say, well, we'll give you this role, but I want you to engage with me. So, unfortunately, Sentai Filmworks localizers could not resist to jump at the opportunity to insert their political agenda into the latest installment of Doga Kobo's animated take on Oshi no Ko. The first incident of Sentai Filmworks localizers inserting cancel culture into Oshi no Ko is in season 3, episode 4, Blind. And I guess here is some of the context, what the original context was from the manga here, and I'm just panning through it here, and I'll read some of this so people probably get a better understanding of, I guess, what the original So I guess this is from, and they're gonna. So in other words, I'm sure he'll use me again. For this incident, director Urushibara is indebted to me now. Just to win over director Urushibara, you deliberately caused that controversy? So I knew that there was a problem with their coverage system. I did some research on the show where I made my first proposal. It was a coincidence. All right. This is from Ruby Hoshino confesses to being behind the Dig Deep incident to Aqua Hoshino in Oshino Code Chapter 93 leak from 2022 from Shuichi. Okay. Following the resolution of the Dig Deep controversy, in which online cosplayer Maya exposing television director Uro Shibara, asking her inappropriate questions during an interview about cosplayers, aspiring idol Ruby Hoshino, who is voiced in the Japanese by Yorie Igoma, who of course portrayed Kokona Mikasa in Marika's Love Meter Malfunction, admitted to her brother Aqua, who is voiced in the Japanese by Takeo Otsuka, who also provided the voice of Tsukasa Akiraji in Medalist, to being the mastermind behind the director's potentially career-ending sexual harassment controversy to help advance her career. Ruby then proceeds to elaborate on how delusional online keyboard warriors believe they are using leaks to shine light on exposing scandals to make the world a better place, when in reality the majority of them are using them to launch personal attacks. Kind of funny. I mean, that does seem kind of true, doesn't it? It's a lot of this is a lot of this is not quite as altruistic. A lot of the candid camera exposing controversies like this isn't really about. It doesn't really seem to be as much about an altruistic desire to shed light on a corrupt system, just more a way to gain clout and just step over a corpse to get what you want. Basically, you just eliminate the obstacle in front of you, and then just advance forward. Excuse me there. Continuing on here. In the manga, Akasaka describes the online lynch mobs as, in smaller quotes, these internet users throw stones at people who are being burned at the stake from a safe distance and consume them as entertainment, unquote. Sentai Filmworks, however, decided to completely forego the burnt at the stake metaphor in favor of cancel culture. Unquote. Quote, and then you have online mobs dogpiling on whoever's getting canceled for fun, unquote. It's much like rabid dogs and on fresh meat, just ravaging the situation. And again, feel free to comment and or ask questions. Anything here grabs your attention, and if you haven't already, you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream. See if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated as well. So anyways, continuing on with the article here. Cancel culture raises its ugly head once again in the following episode, casting. Dig Deep assistant director Shun Yoshizumi's cosplaying VTuber little sister, Mimi Yoshizumi, who is voiced in the anime by Sai Hiratsuka, who also plays Mako in Me and Roboco, is facing a major scandal as a less flattering video from her pre-VTuber days, serviced, forcing her to indefinitely suspend her VTubing activities. In Arasaka's manga, Shun states, quote, she was obviously butchered online, so she had no choice but to suspend her activities. Unquote. The only problem is that inserting the cancel culture bit here, in this case, even though I know a lot of fans probably don't like the fact they are inserting it, it does make a little bit more sense here because it is kind of what's going on, unfortunately, that's the only thing. The Sentai Filmworks localizers, however, had other plans for Shun's dialogue. Quote, naturally, she got mega canceled and has to stop streaming for a while. Unquote. Now, mind you, I think the main issue here, because again, yes, based on what we've seen from the manga and how they've localized it, it is a bit more of a parallel. So it's not that. I would say that it's probably not that disruptive to the manga in this case. There's been a lot of cases though when Western localizers have gone out of their way to insert this stuff in situations where it just really doesn't make sense. It just it's like they just completely change the narrative of the story just so they can push their own agenda. Here, I don't really, even though Nerdigan seems to be arguing that this is what's happening. When you look at what this Oshinoko manga and anime is based on, I would say it actually runs more or less parallel to it. So therefore, it's not quite as big a jump as normal. I think the only thing here is people just don't like the terminology like cancel culture and but in a way that is kind of what's happening. It's kind of like, because from the manga, when you see the manga, yeah, it's like they just dogpile on her, and bully her just because she made a mistake. But then in Japanese culture too, when Japanese celebrity culture too, they're a lot more proper about it. They're a lot more discreet and proper about their behavior. The whole idea of going after somebody like this is just, in Japan is not taken quite as kindly as it is here in the States. Because the Japanese culture tends to be more polite about things. Which is what makes it a very beautiful culture. And what makes their animes so engaging for everybody. All right, so that was it right there. So just a little more commentary here from my part here, and maybe I'll see about go through one more time to see if there's anything new that came up. Because wow, 20 minutes. So even though I wanted to end by have a 50-minute show today, but let me just give a little more commentary, at least from the Sentai. It up until this point, I was under the impression that Sentai had actually was trying to stay out of this mess. While I do understand there are some people who still work for Sentai that also work for what is now, of course, Crunchyroll, what used to be known as Funimation, people like Monica Rial, like Greg Ayers, who are, who do this kind of thing. I was still under the impression that they had, because there are still some people there who work with them who aren't into this, who when the whole thing went down with Vic, weren't engaging with it, and they were either staying neutral or silently supporting him behind the scenes. But so it is a little disappointing to hear that they might be doing it, albeit in this particular case with this particular anime, it's not. I don't think it's quite as much a stretch. Like normally when they insert their own political ideology, normally when Western localizers, do insert their own, political ideologies into Japanese works, they do have it does have a tendency to change the overall narrative of the work. And they are basically, by doing so, are somewhat stealing from the Japanese creator, stealing from them and perverting their creative vision, for Japanese people, I don't think are into cancel culture. They don't like the idea of canceling people just for the sake of cancel. And we have started to see in recent weeks a lot of creators, particularly the older creators like Hideaki Anno, Ken Akamatsu, coming out and saying, we're not doing this to, we're trying to cater to our fans, to our people, not. And if we can cater to people from around the world, that's great too. We'll take that as a bonus, but that's not their primary goal. They're not going to change their vision, or at least that's the manga creator, the mangakas. Corporate seems to be a little bit different on that, but anyways, so that's my bit of a rant on that topic. So let me just go ahead and just run through real quick here. See if there is anything new that may have came up since I grabbed this article this afternoon. Let's see. Of course not. Let's see. As I said, I'm just looking through some stuff here real quick to try to see maybe there's any more. Sometimes what will happen is, Let's see now. All right, so let's check one more thing. Something I haven't checked in a while here. Um, check Critical Blast. See if there's anything of interest here. And as I figured, actually, there's not a whole lot coming out of the Critical Blast either. All right, so yeah, let's see how much. Yeah, well, I guess I'll move on then to the wrestling wrap up as we do have some stuff we can talk about here. Um, so we'll look back, as I said, we'll look back to last night's AEW show, and then look ahead to tonight's Impact and Ring of Honor shows. So on last night's Dynamite, of course, the show opened up with a Continental title eliminator match in which if the challenger wins or lasts a time limit, earns a shot at the Continental title. Jon Moxley successfully fended off the challenge of El Clone in a continuation of the feud between the Death Riders, the Don Callis family. Jon Moxley hitting two consecutive paradigm shifts or double underhook DDTs on El Clone to win at 16 minutes 15 seconds. And after that, of course, Swerve Strickland came out to basically put everybody on notice, put everybody in the AEW locker room on notice that he was coming back, that he was going for the world title, and he's going to do whatever it takes to get that title, including turning heel as he did on Kenny Omega after their match last week. Basically vowing to no longer wrestle with any regrets, and he did claim that in a conversation he had with Hangman Adam Page a while back, he did kind of regret some of the stuff he did during their feud, but now he's going back to no, he's not going to regret anything. Then you had a singles match between Gabe Kidd of the Bullet Club War Dogs, Unbound Company over in Japan, and Orange Cassidy, in which Gabe Kidd defeated Orange Cassidy in 10 minutes, 14 seconds. as Clark Connors came out to help double team Orange Cassidy. Darby Allin came out to confront Kidd and Clark Connors, in which Gabe Kidd got out of there, but Connors was attacked. Eventually, Darby Allin took out both Clark Connors and Gabe Kidd and saved Orange Cassidy from a major beating. Then in another short singles match, the Jet Kevin Knight one half of the Team Jet Speed. The Jet Kevin Knight defeated Mansoor, one half of M&M Collection, in 2 minutes 52 seconds. Then you had a segment with MJF and Hangman Adam Page, in which MJF basically tried to pull a fast one on Hangman Adam Page, by basically doing a coin flip, basically saying that if it came up heads, they would get MJF's choice of match, which was going to be a one-sided no DQ match, in which basically MJF could do anything he wants with while Hangman Adam Page, as MJF put, if he even looked at a weapon, he'd get disqualified. And if it came up tails, then Hangman Adam Page would get his Texas Death Match for their match at Revolution, which basically was said that if he did not win the title this time, he would no longer challenge for the no longer be able to challenge for the AEW World Championship. Granted, a lot of people are very critical of that stipulation online. I'm one of them. Don't think you should ever put that kind of stipulation in there. But and then it did come up heads, but then it was discovered as Hangman Adam Page wanted to see the coin. He wanted to see the coin. MJF tried to run away, only to be blocked off by Hangman Adam Page's allies, of course, his World Trios champion tag partners, Jet Speed, as well as Brody King, and I believe Bandito. They all basically got, and then when MJF did finally give the coin to Hangman Adam Page, he said, "Let's do it. The coin flip again. We'll use a different coin. You can choose a coin." They discovered that it was a two-headed coin. And then it was then announced that, as Tony Schiavone was in there doing the interview segment with them, he got word from Tony Khan that because of MJF's shenanigans, the match would indeed be hey, Metal, thanks for popping in. Anyways, continue on here. Was revealed that Hangman Adam Page would get the match he wants, Texas Death Match for the AEW World Title, coming up at Revolution on March the 15th. Then you had, of course, in a match for the Women's World Tag Team titles, the Babes of Wrath actually retained over Megabad via DQ, as Lena Cross had come into the ring and got, basically earned the DQ at 7:58. During the match, apparently Penelope Ford may have been injured, and therefore the match was apparently changed on the fly, from the looks of it. So, and then you had a match between Brody King and Mark Davis, in which Brody King won in 10 minutes, 16 seconds. And then Brody King, in a rare occasion, got on the mic and essentially challenged Swerve Strickland for a match at Revolution next month, claiming that he was the most dangerous man in ECW. So now you potentially have a possible match being signed between Brody King and Swerve Strickland to determine who truly is the most dangerous man in AEW. And the main event saw a Mile High Madness Anything Goes 10-man tag match. On one side, you had Jack Perry teaming with the Rascals duo of Desmond Xavier and Zachary Wentz, and the number one contenders to the AEW World Tag Team Champions, 3-time World Tag Team Champions, AEW World Tag Team Champions, the Young Bucks, Matt and Nick Jackson, teaming up together to take on currently in their third reign as AEW World Tag Team Champions, FTR of Dax Harwood and Cash Wheeler, as well as the demand of the national champion Ricochet and the Gates of Agony of Bishop Khan and Toa Leona, in which the team of Perry, the Rascals, and the Young Bucks defeated FTR in the demand. So there you go with that, as they continue to set up for, of course, they continue to set up for, Revolution coming up in a little over 2 weeks, about 2.5 weeks here, 15th of March. So anyways, now with that being said, now let's go ahead and now that we've looked back on what happened from last night's show, let's look ahead to what's going to be going down on tonight's TNA Impact, as well as the Ring of Honor. I'll see if there's anything going on for Ring of Honor as well. So on tonight's Thursday Night Impact, which will be airing on AMC, coming from the Pinnacle in Nashville, Tennessee, with Tom Hannafan and Matthew Rainwatt on commentary, as well as Frankie Kazarian. You'll see in an 8-man tag match, you'll see the current TNA World Tag Team Champions, the Hardys, Jeff and Matt Hardy, teaming with the Righteous of Dutch and Vincent to take on the System of Cedric Alexander, Bear Bronson, Eddie Edwards, and Brian Myers. Tasha Steelz of Order 4 with the rest of Order 4 in her corner will be taking on Jada Stone. Mance Warner with Steph DeLander in his corner will be taking on AJ Francis in a feud that's been kind of building over the last couple weeks here. Danny Luna will mark her in-ring return to TNA by taking on Lei Yingling. Initially, again, Lei Yingling, of course, being the most recent former Knockout World Champion before dropping the title to Ariana Grace. Zaya Brookside will be in her corner. And in the main event, we'll see the TNA World and X Division champions teaming together. Mike Santana and Leon Slater take on the Nemeths, Nick and Ryan Nemeth. Of course, Nick still is the Gauntlet Cup holder and still has a shot at the TNA World Title for any time he wishes to cash in on that. So now let's also take a quick peek at Ring of Honor. So I can find something here for that. Let me see if we have any information on that on tonight's Ring of Honor show. And I guess not. Let's see here. Oh, that one was from last week. So yeah, so I guess they still haven't listed what's going to be going down on Ring of Honor tonight. So we're pretty much done then with the wrestling wrap up. So now we'll go ahead and take a look, with today being, of course, Thursday, February 26th, 2020, 2026. We'll go ahead and take a look back at this date in Nietzsche history. History! 76, 2021, 1966, and 86. All right. So first off, we're going to head back 60 years ago today. On this date, 60 years ago today, distributed by Warner Brothers Pictures and produced by DePatie-Freleng Enterprises, DFE. Mexican Mousepiece premiered in theaters on this date 60 years ago today, back in 1966. Mexican Mousepiece is a 1966 Warner Brothers Merry Melodies cartoon directed by Robert Mikestand. The short was released on February 26, 1966, and stars Daffy Duck and Speedy Gonzales. So, 60 years ago today, Robert McKinson's Mexican Mousepiece was released into theaters on this date 60 years ago. Now, moving ahead to the year 1976, 50 years ago today, on this date 50 years ago today, the 10th issue of Harvey comic Richie Rich Billions went on sale on this date back in 1976. It sold for 35 cents, 46 pages. Of course, had a number of features that included, of course, Richie Rich, Little Dot, and Made a Money. Made a Money, okay. So the 10th issue of Richie Rich Billions went on sale on this date back in 1976 from Harvey Comics. All right, so now moving on to the next piece of niche history as we move ahead to the year 1986. Big date in the world of anime on this one. As on this date, back in 1986, 40 years ago today, Toei Animation's Dragon Ball premiered on FFNS, which of course we know of today as Fuji TV. So on this date, 40 years ago today, the anime Toei Animation Dragon Ball premiered on what we know of today as Fuji TV, was known back then as FNS. So there you go. Probably one of the most iconic animes of all time. Let's see. That's what my earlier email or emoji comment was referring to. I didn't get that. But I get, yeah, okay, dragon and then all the balls. Okay, now I see. And finally, on this date 5 years ago today, a bit of a more of a sad piece of history here. On this date 5 years ago today, 4-time WWF Junior Heavyweight and former WWF Intercontinental Tag Team Champion Johnny DeFazio passed away at the age of 80. Johnny DeFazio was a regular for the WWF in the Pittsburgh portion of their territory, or the WWF. Of course, what we know of today as the WWE. On this date, 5 years ago today, Johnny DeFazio, former 4-time WWF Junior Heavyweight and WWF International Tag Team Champion, Johnny DeFazio, passed away at the age of 80. Alrighty then. So, hope everybody enjoyed the show tonight. We'll, of course, be back here with more Niche News tomorrow. And, of course, don't forget, this Sunday, I'll be joined by Apex from Apex Comics, who will be looking at comics that went on sale in August of 1940. We'll be looking at specifically at books that went on sale from Dell Comics. We'll be reading from Crackerjack Comics and Popular Comics and Super Comics. Let's see. We're reading Phantasmo, Ellery Queen, and Gangbusters. Actually, the funnies, not Super Comics, the funnies. So I hope you all will come to join us then. Let me see. Of course, we'll be back here with more Niche News tomorrow. We'll be, of course, get caught up on all that happened on tonight's NXT and Ring of Honor shows. Actually, let me check one other thing. So I guess I can go over real quick some of the upcoming. So WWE will, of course, be having its Elimination Chamber this Saturday. We'll go over the card tomorrow. From Chicago. AEW, as we mentioned, will be having Revolution on the 15th. That Revolution will, of course, be out here in LA. We kind of take a quick peek at some of the upcoming events here. Revolution will be coming from the Crypto.com arena in Los Angeles, California on March the 15th. Let's see now. Then TNA, let's see when TNA's next big event is. So TNA's next pay-per-view, big event, as soon as I can find it, will be Sacrifice, which is coming up on the 27th. Also that date, Ring of Honor will be doing a show with Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling up in Canada, Global Wars. It's got the Moore's promotion. On the 27th, TNA will be doing Sacrifice. It'll be on a Friday from the Alario Center in Westwego, Louisiana. So those are some of the events coming up for the major wrestling companies coming up over the next month here. So with that, I thank you all for being here. I hope everybody enjoyed the show. And I will see you all tomorrow. Bye.